Hello again, and welcome to the wonderful world of interpersonal communication online. Um, I'm hoping that these videos and speaker's notes are helping you. I really prefer teaching this in person, but yeah, we have to do what we have to do. This week's chapter is chapter 6, and it's all about listening. You know, my wife and my mother and Judge Judy all told me the same thing. Well, Judy didn't tell me personally, but we have two ears and one mouth because we should listen twice as much as we talk. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Oftentimes, we don't truly listen to what other people are saying. So, to start with, is there a difference between hearing and listening? And yes, there is. Hearing is a biological function. You hear a bird sing, you hear a dog bark, you hear a police siren, you hear a gunshot, you hear the wind blow in the trees. But you don't have to do anything with that. You don't have to process it. You don't have to commit it to memory. Listening is something that you actually process and you commit to a certain portion of memory. Now, we have to be mindful when we want to listen. I had a professor once tell me, be here now. He said, those three words are perfect. You can be here now, you can now be here, you can hear me now. Any way you put those words, they mean the same thing, basically. You need to focus your attention on whoever you're listening to. Not texting or daydreaming or planning a rebuttal. Oftentimes, I remember in my childhood, and you probably do too, that when my mother was chastising me about something, I was trying to figure out my alibi before I listened to what she had to say. Multitasking reduces productivity. I don't know if I told this class or my other class, but one day I was on the front porch having a cigar and watching the sunset and playing with my phone, and my wife walked out and said something to me, and I was like, yeah, 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 and then she went inside, and I realized that I was being rude. So after that, when she'd come outside, I'd put my phone down and I'd look at her while she talked to me. Now it was nothing, earth shattering, and it wasn't, a relationship um, um, conditional type conversation. It was just everyday conversation. But I realized that she needed or deserved my full attention, regardless of what the conversation was about. So, get over here, found my mouse. There it is. So, multitasking reduces your productivity. Selective information also reduces it. My wife tells me oftentimes that men have a biological condition called selective hearing. We hear what we want to hear. A lot of times we actually listen only for certain things. Dinner's ready. Okay, I heard that. Take the trash out. Huh? You asked me? I didn't hear that. I don't remember you saying that. Interpreting. You need to be person centered. You need to focus on that person that you're having a conversation with. You can't let your own biases interfere with you. I had a warrant officer when I was in the Army, and I had a lot of female bosses that were great, but this particular one would get mad when we were in Germany if she was trying to talk to a German, and he'd say, Nicht verstehen, I don't understand. Well, she was speaking English. That was her native language. English wasn't his. Now, most Germans speak some English, but when you get into the technical stuff of building, putting an MRI unit in or doing construction or medical equipment, a lot of times it's a little different. And so I would speak to him in German, and she'd get mad at me because he disrespected her just because she's a woman. Not necessarily. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't, but I'm saying that a lot of times she brought it on herself because immediately she put up this wall that said, you're going to treat me differently because I'm a woman. And don't get me wrong, it happens all the time, and I definitely try not to make it happen when I'm working with a woman. But it's there. There are built-in prejudice and biases out there that we need to help overcome, and through personal Interpersonal communication is one great way to do it. But when you need to be person-centered, you need to figure out what that person is talking about and where they're coming from. Responding communicates interest and attention. Um, my wife says that my favorite responses are yeah, yeah. But at least I'm acknowledging something. Oftentimes I should respond better. I agree with that. Remembering, about 8 hours later, you can generally remember 35% of what you heard. Immediately after, about 50%, because we don't force ourselves to listen. Now, I'm going to give you a little, I like to do this in class, but it's a little quiz or practice. So um, get you a pen and paper, stop this video until you get one, or pencil and paper. And I'm going to read 5 sentences to you. And I want you to write them down verbatim. Now, don't start writing until I finish the sentence. This is a way to practice listening. So I'll read the sentence, you write it down. I'll read the next sentence, you write it down. At the end, you can go through my speaker's notes to see how well you did. All right, first sentence. Everyone at the game wore a red shirt. Second sentence. The power went out due to a big storm last Monday morning. Third sentence. He usually eats 2 soft tacos and a burrito whenever he goes to Taco Bell. Fourth sentence. The 4 children spent the whole afternoon playing on the swings and slide at the local park. And finally, the fifth sentence. After running 4 miles on the beach, the young woman walked another mile in order to cool down and then went home. Now, in class, I generally go over these afterwards, and so the whole class can see how well they did. I'd like you to look at the speaker's notes and see how well you transcribed what I said verbatim. The whole point is that you can't do it. And you can get most of it, and you can get pretty correct. But if you try to write while I'm talking, it's even harder because, professors don't shut up. It's not like this video where you can stop it or you can back it up and play it again and play it again. But it's a way to learn how to listen better. It's a practice you can do. And that last one, after running 4 miles on the beach, a young woman walked another mile in order to cool down and then went home. Did you write FOR miles or FOUR miles? Because they both sound the same. Internal obstacles we have with listening is we're preoccupied. Something else is on our mind. And it happens all the time. It'd be nice when you came to class or you started a video that you could just push everything out, close the door, and give it 100% of your attention. You can't. There's something, your phone rings, your kid screams, doorbell rings, the timer goes off, something. So you can't always, or you might have a sick family member that you're worried about. You might have a pending date that you're going to pop the question that you're worried about. There's all kinds of things that can preoccupy you, but you need to try to set that stuff aside. Prejudgment. A lot of times we judge somebody before we've given them a chance to prove themselves. I mean, it happens. Like I was talking earlier about Chief Mariotto, and immediately she's judging these guys aren't going to talk to her because she's a woman. Immediately, some guys are judging, well, she's a woman, I'm not going to listen to her. We have these prejudgments that we make. I have been guilty of it in the past. I was at a change of command, and my new commander, he talked like this, and he said and I thought, oh my God, he's from the hills of West Virginia, doesn't have a fork in his family tree. Turned out the man had 2 PhDs and a master's. He just didn't articulate words. And I was guilty and wrong of prejudging him. And it happens to me all the time when I start class in person. I walk in with my cane. And immediately it's like, he's blind. He can't see. Well, I can see a little bit. So, we can't, or we need to try not to prejudge people. Emotionally loaded language is something that will often interfere with communication and listening. Politicians often rely on voters for emotional response. Think of all the videos, commercials, ads that you've seen recently in this political atmosphere. If you're a Democrat, the Republicans are saying that you're evil and everything else. And if you're a Republican, the Democrats are saying that you're evil and everything else. And the world is going to be terrible if you don't elect their person that they want you to elect. We need to get beyond emotion when we talk. We need to get beyond emotion when we listen. Sometimes emotion is going to drive us, but in a conversation with a significant other in an interpersonal relationship, you need to try to keep emotion out of it when it's really, really important. And it's hard. It really is. You know, a lot of times we don't even talk to that significant other until something goes on that as they used to say, the straw that breaks the camel's back. And a lot of times what's really bothering them isn't what the argument's about. It's just that emotionally that's where they blew up. Lack of effort, trying not trying to listen is a problem with listening. Like I was on the front porch with my phone. Da 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 da. I wasn't trying to pay attention. Failure to adapt. We need to adapt. We need to change sometimes. A lot of times we take listening for granted, and we need to adapt and become better listeners. There's a couple of different forms of non-listening. Pseudo listening, pretending to listen, fake listening. When I have a lecture going on in class, I can see the students that are pretending to listen, but you can tell that they're in Never Land somewhere. Monopolizing, taking over the conversation, not giving the other person a chance to have their say. Selective listening. I told you about my wife's definition of selective listening, but selective listening is I had a student one time say that the class is so noisy, and it's probably one of the quietest classes I had. But every little thing in that classroom, this person chewing gum, and this person texting, and this person writing, and it overwhelmed them. They the first time after I got hearing aids, I went to a class and they were giving a test. I was giving a test, and I heard pencils for the first time writing on paper, and it was like, what the hell is that noise? And it bothered me because I could hear that noise, and I didn't worry about anything else. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was, what's that noise? So, selective listening to, if you're in class, listening to the lawnmower outside, or listening to the plane or the train go by. Defensive listening. A lot of times when we're listening, instead of listening to the other person's point, we are coming up with a defense. And the thing about good listening is we need to be able to agree to disagree. You need to understand what the other person is saying, and then say, okay, well, I don't feel that way, and let's go on with it. As opposed to, you can you can disagree without being disorderly or disruptive. Ambushing. Ambushing is when you're listening for one thing that you can jump on. They said that 9 out of 10 dentists agree, but the commercial said 4 out of 5 dentists agree. Well, that's not a fact, so I'm going to jump on that. And a lot of times people misspeak. A lot of times they have a little bit different information than you do. More than 50%. Well, I looked at it and it was 50.0% or 0.1. Yeah, well, to one person that's more, and to another person, they round it down, and that's 50%. But ambushing is when you're listening strictly, excuse me, to find something that you can fight back on. Literal listening. Now, there's types of listening. You can listen for pleasure. I do that all the time with the radio, music, uh, books, reading. You know, they have books on tape now or books on disc or whatever. Listening for information. Hopefully, that's what you're doing in class. Hopefully, you're listening for information to earn something, to learn something. Um, there's obstacles when you listen for information. You need to ask about things if you don't understand. Use of aids. I normally don't pass stuff around during class because if I'm passing something around, I've lost people. You know, if you're listening for information and the person in front of you has the object that I'm passing around, you're looking at them, wondering when it's your turn. And when you get it, you're not paying attention to me. And when you just had it, you're trying to catch up to where you were. You need to organize your thoughts. You need to organize your presentation uh, when you're so people that are listening for information can find stuff. Listen to support, um, especially in an interpersonal relationship. A lot of times, whoever you're in a relationship with just wants you to listen. They don't want you to fix it. They don't want your advice. They don't want you to change things. They don't want you to They don't want you to tell them that they're right or they're wrong. They just want you to listen. And a lot of times we don't listen to support people. We just listen and then start giving, especially guys, and don't take this wrong, it's not a sexist comment, but you know, guys want to fix stuff. So if you tell me something's wrong, I'm going to fix it. And a lot of times, you know, they don't want you to fix it. They just want you to hear them. Be mindful and take care with judgment. You know, a lot of times our friends or our significant others tell us something and we start judging. You know, we can't do that. We have to listen and don't judge their perspective because, you know, you don't wear their shoes. You don't know where they're at. You can paraphrase when you're having a conversation with somebody, and that will help them understand that you're listening to them and paying attention. Social media. Social media is changed the many things about communication. A lot of times it requires listening. A lot of times it requires reading. If it's video chat, you need to listen to what they're talking about. You don't need to just have it going on or playing a game on your other side of your monitor or on another monitor while they're talking. Uh, Engagement interferes with if you're engaged in other things, it interferes with the way you can communicate. You need to be a critical thinker, especially in these times that the politics are going on, as opposed to jumping on the bandwagon and just da 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 da. You need to be critical about what they're saying and make sure that you're understanding what they're saying because a lot of times, especially with sound bites, you don't get the whole information. So be critical about what they say. And another way to improve listening is actually to pretend to be interested. You know, and I said fake listening earlier was wrong, but, you know, like my wife and I love to watch the show Big Bang Theory. And I watch it, and my wife said, "Why do you watch that show? It's stupid." And I said, "Yeah, but I work with those guys. I know them." You know, and she shakes her head. But, you know, one day I was watching it, she was with me, and Sheldon was doing this. She said, "He's going to erase it." And he goes, "I told you." Now, she hates the show, but she pretends to be interested for me. And it's like cop shows. She loves Forensic Files and um, NCIS and CIS and all these other ones, these cop shows. And I think she's trying to figure out a way to kill me and get away with it. But, you know, like I was watching it one day and her hero, Horatio, in Miami CIS, he grabs a gun from a cop and he lays across the hood and he shoots this terrorist truck driver suicide bomber driving toward a nuclear plant from 600 yards right between the eyes with somebody else's gun and the guy's doing 60 miles an hour. It ain't happening. You know, you need to suspend reality or suspend reality to watch shows like that. And it's like, it ain't going to happen. He can't do that. But, you know, I watch it with her. I figure out, and I pretend to be interested in what she's interested in. And by telling myself that I need to be interested in that, then it allows me to make sure that I focus and pay attention on it. Now, I'm never going to become a fan of those shows. Um, she's probably not ever going to become a fan of Big Bang Theory. But for us to have a way to communicate, occasionally we have to pretend to be interested in what the other one is interested in, or pretend to be interested in what they're talking about. And when you tell yourself you need to be interested, then it helps you to listen. So that's it for this chapter. I hope it was good for you. Y'all have my email, you have my phone number. If you need me, contact me, and I will talk to you in the next video. Take care.